All right, welcome. We are live. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. Show this out, show this out, show this out. It's Friday night, the law of one. I see some people in the audience already there. Reese, welcome. Denise, welcome. Cassie, welcome. Like I said, share this out, share this out, share this out. I shared it out in about like 4 places. Having that extra couple of minutes for the second video gives me more time, especially since I have to go over to, wait, let me hide this banner, especially since I have to go over to Instagram and hit live after it goes live. So there's a lag. So I hit live in the studio, start the video, and then I got to go into Instagram, pull it up on, because I don't have other monitors set up anymore because the radiation was too high. So I just have Windows open, and I had to go to Instagram and then wait for that to start playing the live video, then hit go live, make sure it goes live, then go back, go to Facebook, and then start sharing it out. So it takes me a little bit longer to go live. So I make sure that I take care of that, right? So I make sure I take care of that when we're, and then I can share it to a few other places, right? So we're live on Instagram, YouTube, and on Facebook, and I shared to 4 places on Facebook. So we're on, and actually I went live on Orion Rising and shared to my page and then 4 other groups. So I shared to 6 places on Facebook alone, and then on YouTube and on Instagram. So 8 places I shared to. Okay. Joanne, welcome. Okay, so it's Friday night. It's Law of One. Today is the 1st of November. So Halloween was yesterday. For some of you, if you're in Australia, it's already the 2nd of November. Halloween was on the 31st. The 1st is All Saints Day if you're Christian or specifically Catholic. It's All Saints Day, and now it's Day of the Dead, which is technically it's a 2-day holiday, but they actually celebrate for like 4 days, so it's a little bit longer than that. And that has to do with the same thing, venerating your ancestors. So that's also a pagan holiday that the Christians grabbed a hold of and incorporated into and the Catholics grabbed a hold of and incorporated. So it's the Latinos, Latino people, the Hispanic people from around the world who are Christian who enacted that, and it came out of a blend of Santorini and the Mexican religion, which I can't think of the name of it, so I apologize for anybody. The Spanish religion, not from Spain, but from the Americas, and so it's sort of got encompassed in all of that, and then because it was their ritual was the same time period, which November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and 4th, when the veil is the thinnest. And it also happens to be a new moon today, right? So on top of everything else, it's a new moon. We have literally the Halloween, instead of it being on a full moon this year, it's actually on a new moon, which is actually, if you know anything about paganism, Druidism, or Wiccanism, the full moon is really powerful if it's the last harvest moon, but if it's the new moon for the moon after the harvest moon, because the harvest moon was 15 days ago, on the 15th or 16th was the last harvest moon for the harvest festival, like the Wicca Man burning and stuff like that. A lot of people don't know about that stuff. Anyway, so now it's the new moon beginning to close the veil, and when it appears on Halloween or right thereafter, it's pretty intense. So there's a lot of people, I'm sure, that'll be going skyclad last night, tonight, and tomorrow night, and if not, just out doing rituals and casting spells, or doing them in their houses if they're solitary practitioners, or in religious ceremonies around the world. Not just Christian, for the almost 3 billion people that are Christian, but the millions and millions, tens, 20, almost 50 million people who are, or more these days, who are Wiccan, pagan, Druid around the world. So it's a pretty big time. And then there's other holidays too. This is the beginning of I forgot what it's called. It's in the Sikhs, Sikhs, I guess is how they say it. Sikh, not Sikh. Everybody says Sikh because of the I, but it's Sikh. in that religion, which I'm not sure which one it is, today is the beginning, moving up to the next day or two into their festival. And I don't remember which festival it is. Unfortunately, I was looking at it earlier today, and now I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. So this time period being the end of October and the first week in November, there's at least 8 different religions on the planet that have this specific 7-day, 10-day period as religious holidays and cultural holidays. So, and then you're going into, Christmas, where you have a lot of different holidays during Christmas as well. So the people are like, "Oh, we're going into the holidays," and I look at them and go, "What do you mean you're going into the holidays?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, so you don't know anything about any of the religions on the earth, because the holiday season started like a month ago." Right? Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, we're going to the holidays because Thanksgiving is at the end of November, and then we're going into Christmas and then New Year's." And I'm like, "You're forgetting at least 8 other holidays in the 30 days prior to Thanksgiving." Americans that don't know what's going on around the world, or people that don't know what's going on around the world. Anyway, I just thought I would mention that, because this is a lot of holy days are happening currently in many, many religions. I didn't post about Halloween, which I normally do, but I did post about Day of the Dead, a video that I created last year. I think it was last year or the year before last year. And the artist who sang that song, I spoke to her last year, and she thanked me for using her version of that song for the video. And so she was okay with me doing it again. So I actually literally spoke with her last year when I went to post her song. I asked permission if I could use her voice, because I liked her version. You should hear her entire song, her version of that with her voice. She was very, you could tell, if you listen to it, you can tell that she means it. She's not just singing the song. It's part of her culture. It's part of her religion, and she believes it. And so her heart is in it. And I heard all these other people singing when I was, getting the song for the video, when I was making the video last year. And I said, this is the best sounding. She has, her heart is in it. She's means what she's saying. So when I talked to her, she was very proud that I understood how much and realized how much that the song meant to her and her culture, specifically why she sang the song, the version that she did. So you guys should listen to that song and then go and look her up, because she's a really good artist, and she's got a great, great voice. And she wasn't just singing that song because she wanted to get a hit. She was singing that song because it meant something to her culture, to her religion, to her way of life, and because of because of her creed. But she's very proud of that heritage. So, and then of course I made sure to get some really good photos of people around the globe celebrating with sugar skull painting on their face. I don't know if you guys know that's what that's called, by the way, because originally they called it that because they used to take sugar, because you have to remember that the biggest commodity that the South American people had for the last 1,000 years was their spices. And so they were refining sugar a lot, and people were there's still places you can go, like to Belize and a few other places in Central and South America on the east coast of Central and South America, where they still have the sugar plantations and the farms and the big towers where they were cooking the sugar and making the sugar from the sugar cane and all of that. Everyone thinks that because of pure cane, was the CNH from Hawaii, that everyone thinks that sugar is indigenous to Hawaii, and it actually was not. It was brought from the mainland of South America to Hawaii, and they started growing it there. It wasn't indigenous. It's like macadamia nuts. Everyone thinks that macadamia nuts are synonymous with Hawaii and that they're indigenous to there. They also came from Peru. Okay, they are indigenous to Southern California and the Baja region and south. So is sugar cane. Sugar cane was all over the Americas, mostly in the tropical zone. So Central Mexico, Central America, and South America and for both of those, and they're famously grown in Hawaii, but they're not actually indigenous to Hawaii, either one of them. A lot of people don't know that. Most of you, I'll bet, don't know that little tidbit. But because I do have 5% native DNA from the Baja California, don't look at, I look very European, but I am native. I could claim it. I have enough to where I could actually move on to the reservation and get paid free rent and board and money from the United States government. Not a joke. Although I'm getting that basically now because I'm on Social Security, but I would probably make more money claiming my Native American status. I just don't think it's right because I'm only 5%, and then I'm like, 3% Greek Roman, and then everything else is European, Viking, and Celt. I don't feel that it's right to do that, where a lot of people do that if they have 5% African DNA. They're like, I'm black. I'm like, well, no, you're 5%. You're literally 95% something else. And so I don't do that kind of stuff. Woo, welcome. Woo Riders DG is on over there on YouTube. Welcome. So I don't know if anybody's over there on Instagram. Usually people pop in over there. Well, Denise went over there and said hi. Right. So, okay. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a background there for you guys' perspective as to what's going on right now, because if you're feeling the energy and you're feeling the pressure and you're feeling a little bit of anxiety right now, it's been this way and it's going to continue to the end of the year with the full moon. We still have 2 more full moons, 3 more full moons. I think I'll have to look at the exact timing because October are the 31 days. November, I think, has 30 or 31 days. I'm looking at the calendar over there. I'm trying to see the calendar without my distance glasses on. I think November does not have 31 days, but December has 31 days. So because of that, the way it's falling, if this is a new moon on the 1st, 15 days is a full moon, 15 days will be a new moon. And so that will literally be at the end of November or December 1st or 2nd. So you're going to have one full moon cycle, 15th, and then probably 2 weeks later. So I'll have to look at, you guys could probably look that up. I'll have to look. It looks like that we might end up with not a full moon, a waning moon by the end of the year. So in 2025, I could probably look on my phone. 2025 is probably the second week of January. Okay. Cassie said, in college, I learned about the Day of the Dead and participated in a parade. Nice. I've never done that. That's rocking. Let me put this up on the screen and I'll read it to those of you who are listening on the MP3 broadcast. She goes on. She said, participated in a parade, a celebration of it, and got to dress up and learn the heritage and meaning directly from the lineage from Mexico. That's pretty badass. I remember when a friend of mine who lives in Canada, who is an admin over on Ancient Aliens Worldwide, who's one of the oldest members of the admin team that goes back probably about 8 years with me. She dressed up, I think it was last year or the year before. I'm not exactly sure which year, but I was posting for the Day of the Dead, and she actually dressed up and was doing that and painted her face, the sugar skull stuff, and the whole nines. And so she actually didn't know that I was posting about it. And then when I did, she actually was in the outfit. So she took a selfie and sent it to me and said, what's the irony of that? You're posting about it. I'm literally getting ready to go out to do this. She's French Canadian, and she was going to celebrate that. And so I think it's badass when you guys do that. I wish one of these days I'm going to have to do that myself. And dress up and get somebody to paint my face. If you go to one of the celebrations, like Cassie could tell you because she had done that, when you go to one of their celebrations, there's people there that you can get to paint your face and stuff for you, so you can go really authentic, and then drink some wine and stuff with everybody, eat some food and party and have a great time and I've watched the parades. They're pretty badass. I've never actually gone to one to see it live in person. It's on my bucket list because I really like that culture, because that culture isn't just Hispanic. It goes back to the natives in this the North America, Central America, and South America, and Mexico, of course, the Americas. It goes back thousands of years, not just when after the Spanish got here and bred the, with the people and became the Mexican people. But yeah, it goes way back. In fact, no one really knows how far back it goes. It could go back to the Mayans, the Aztecs and the like, all the way back. So it could be as old as 20, 30, 40,000 years old. That heritage that whole entire thing came from. So no one really knows that. You can ask the people, and some people in different places tell you that it's older, and they have their timeline is different in different parts of the America. So, but it's really old. It's very old. So it's kind of badass that you got to do that. Cassie, that's kind of fun. I would love to go and do that. Okay. So I guess I should, get started here. So we're on session 65, 64. Hold, please. I'm going to check my phone. I could just play it, and because I have it primed up, but no, hold on here. I think we're on session 64. Don't quote me until I look. Yeah, we're on session 64 this week. So let me go ahead and start with that instead of wasting too much time, because I already wasted 20 minutes talking about the holidays that we're in right now, currently with this new moon. And then now I'm being told to mention the 11:11. I believe that, and it's weird because I got this image of the 11:11, and I believe that because here we are in the 11th month, first day of the 11th month. I don't know if something's going to be on 11:11 or if it's now with the new moon, but I just realized that when I was sleeping last night, I was having a conversation with somebody, and they were telling me about the correlation of 11:11. And I didn't remember it all day until, as I was talking, I was about to start the raw, and then all of a sudden I literally got this image. Talk about 11:11. So angel number 11:11. And I know that we're going towards November 11th, right? So yeah, that's weird. So I don't know why that was brought up. So I think this new moon has something to do with 11:11. It will be 11 days from the new moon, so it will be almost a full moon as it's waxing, because the full moon should be somewhere around the 14th. So I think that I don't know what the angel number 11:11 means, right? Denise said 11:11 is Valentine's Day, or no, Veterans Day. It's Veterans Day. 11:11 is actually Veterans Day. I was unaware of that. Denise said 11:11 is Veterans Day. So I was actually unaware of that date. Like, I guess if I looked at the calendar, I probably would have saw that. The calendar's kind of far away. I'd have to look on my phone to see the 11th. And yeah, it is. I can see there's writing there. I can't read it from this far away, but you're right. It is a holiday, and that's a Monday. 10/11. Yeah, that's a Monday. It's a week from this Monday. Wow. Okay, so it's a holiday in the United States, Veterans Day, but there's some correlation with the stars right now, and I don't know what it is. I'm being told from my higher self or my guides. They're not giving me all the details, but they're saying there's an alignment of our planets, and one of those alignments where it's a galactic alignment. So our solar system is lining up, and it's pointing at the center of our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, and apparently our galaxy is lining up with other galaxies and pointing towards the center of the universe. I don't remember having hearing anything from NASA or anybody about that. So I'm gonna have to look that up after this show today, because I'm being told that we have a galactic alignment that's happening between now and 11:11, if not on 11:11. So if some of you guys are Googling some stuff, right? And then Penny said, I woke up at 3 a.m. on 11:1, right? And saw a shooting star at 3:11, right? So yeah, I saw you had said that before in one of the chats. Steve, welcome. Steve said, hey, Leonard, thanks for the info. Hoping to buy your book soon. I hope you buy my book soon too. Thank you. I'll do a commercial on my book since you mentioned it and put my book up for people. I hope you buy my book soon too. So if you guys don't know, hold on, and I'm going to get where's the picture here? It's over here. There we go. So if you guys don't know, I wrote a book and it just came out. I put it up on the screen, and I'll tell you guys that are listening on the MP3 file broadcast around the world so you can't see the visuals. I wrote a book and it just got published in June. It's called The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways. If you Google, and you have to, people always, for some reason, I called it the reality about reality, and people always change the word in their mind to the reality of reality. And it means the same thing, but it doesn't mean the same thing. And that's why I chose the word about reality. Because it's not, I'm not telling you what the reality of reality is. I'm telling you about the reality about reality, meaning the same thing, except for I'm encompassing the information of what happened here. That's why it's called Returning to the Old Ways. What happened here in the last thousands, about 10,000 to 12,000 years on this earth that changed compared to the way it was before, prior, at almost every time period prior, going back to 77,000 years ago, and the way that it's supposed to work here, and what has changed and what you need to know about so that you can change it back. So when I even had a host of a show that I was on, he said, I couldn't find your book. I Googled your book and I couldn't find it. I said, what did you Google? He said, The Reality of Reality. I said, it's not called The Reality of Reality. It's the reality about reality, returning to the old ways. So you guys should, it's on sale worldwide online. It has been since June. You guys should take a look at it. So it's literally a comprehensive book that is about, now I got to get back out of that window there, about the reality, about reality, what's going on this earth, because it kind of correlates with the idea. If you have read The Law of One, any of those books, or listened to any of the audio recordings for it, or have listened to any of my descriptions of it, they knew about it, and many other people. I would show you the book. It's under the camera right here, unfortunately, propping the camera up. God-man, the Bible made flesh, they are giving you the same information about the corruption of the world by evil people, the 14% that are evil, to take this knowledge away from you right before your eyes. It's there, and they've tried to edit it out so that you don't understand what's actually happening here, and created this place that already is a matrix into basically the Matrix, which was what that guy wrote about in the original writing about the story that was the movie The Matrix, was also trying to tell you. But it wasn't aliens have us locked up in a pod with draining us for batteries. That's not what that guy originally wrote. That was what Hollywood changed it to when they stole the script from him. So my book, The Reality About Reality, coincides with giving you the same information about what Raw is telling us of what was going on, but not just Raw. There's many other places throughout history where you see the same amount of stuff, knowledge, where people were telling you this stuff. And I start pointing that out in that book, explaining to you what's going on here, and what you need to do to see past it, and how you can look at all the Bibles and see all of the religions from around the world, from every culture, telling you the exact same story, and that most people are missing it. Theologians, when they're studying religion and philosophical thought and scrolls, they're all too busy trying to translate and find who the oldest knowledge is, who wrote the first book, and everybody must be copying that, and that's all they do. So they miss the message. And I talk about this so many times, even in my book. They're running up to the tree line of the forest, trying to find the forest, and they're like, all these trees are in the way, knock them down so we can find the forest. And they knock all the trees down in the forest, and then they go, there it is, way over there, out on the other side of the clearing. And they run over there, and that must be older trees. And now these trees are in the way. We need to find the oldest one, so chop all these other trees down. They chop them all down, and that's what they keep doing. Most theologians spend their entire career trying to find the oldest scroll, and they never actually pay attention to what every religion on the face of this earth is actually saying at all. They miss the message. 2,000 years ago, there was a man who showed up who was preaching that very narrative, and he went by Yahshua, Jesus, and he was born in a place called Nazareth, in a small little place called Bethlehem. He was telling the same story 2,000 years ago, and it hasn't changed to this day. People are still doing exactly what he was trying to tell everybody that they were doing back then. They're not focusing on the message at all. They're focusing on, these are the laws of God, and if you don't do these, we have to kill you. They have more in all the religions on the earth, especially the ones from the Middle East, weirdly, especially those ones, they have death penalty for just about everything. If you say God's name, you get killed in like 4 religions. Okay? If you sneeze the wrong way, you get killed in that religion. You look at somebody the wrong way, you get killed in those religions. None of those laws were originally in the book that they claimed they got from their God, but they added all that stuff in. So there's a lot of things. Like the Hebrews, they were given 10 commandments by Moses, 10 laws. They now have more than 6,000 laws. And probably 40 or to 50% of them are death if you offend the law. Okay? Those all came afterwards. God didn't tell anybody that. The humans made up those laws and added them in. Do you see? So that happens in all, and I'm not picking on the Hebrews. It happens in all the religions. The Christians did the same thing. The law of Moses was 10 laws from God. Moses didn't clamp down and throw a bunch of other laws in there. There were 10 mainstay laws, and they were commonsensical laws. And after that, they were commonsensical ideologies that they went, you're going to die if you cut your hair. It literally was death if you cut your hair, because they decided, God says, don't cut the hair at the side of your head. So if anybody cut their hair, they got killed. And then all of a sudden, one day that just stopped and everybody cut their hair. But then you have people that are like the Hasidic Jews and some of the Muslims that are Puritans, and they go by the old laws, and that's why they don't cut their hair. That's why you see them wearing the turbans on their head, because they're wrapping their hair up in there, because they actually have long hair and they don't cut their beards and they have long beards. I'm not saying that's wrong at all. What I'm saying is those people, even though everybody gets mad and says, oh, they're a little crazy, they're more accurate to the original laws that go further back than anybody else. The Hasidic Jews are the same way. They have their hair, but then you have all because the Catholics, they all started shaving their head and cutting that hair on the back here so they could put a yarmulke on there. And then they did away with the yarmulke, but the monks still shaved their bald head right here in the back. So they had the hair that went around here and the bald spot on the top, and they shaved the bottom off. And that goes against Moses' laws of don't cut the hair on the side of your head, right? So there's many laws that they did away with and then added a bunch more. So the semantical problems with all of these religions are the things that people added because they wanted power and they wanted control over people, right? Chandra, welcome. I think I'm saying that right. Welcome. I just happened to put my glasses on, so I see that you're talking in the chat there. So hi. So if you guys talk in the chat and I don't see you, I apologize, because if I don't have these on, unless I do this, I can't see the words. They're blurry right here in this eye, completely blurry. This eye, I can almost make it out. Right there is fine for this eye. So depending on how far away I am from the computer, I apologize. So unless I do this the whole time and look like Santa Claus, which is getting to be that season, so I guess I could put on my other glasses here and really look like Santa Claus. Let me put on my other reading glasses here, and I can put these down like this and look like Santa Claus, right? I just put on the hat. I have the hat. It's in the other room, though. I'll put it on when we get closer to Christmas. Okay. So let me go ahead and start with the law of one. But I wanted to mention that because the spirituality, and you'll see as we go in the law of one, the spirituality is still the same that is in all of these religions. And I talk about that in my book, The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways. And so the knowledge that I'm giving you as the subtitle, Returning to the Old Ways, is telling you and starting to tell you, and I'm giving you more information on how to do that and what that entails in the next book, which will be out in a couple of years, that I'm currently writing, that is an extension of The Reality About Reality. It gives you a little bit more of a comprehensive idea of what's going on. I'm showing you the comparisons that I tell you about, that I mention in this first book. So I can give you the knowledge And I give you guys this for free all the time when I'm doing the show. So a lot of the stuff, when you read my book, if you watch and listen to my podcast, you're going to hear me say a lot of it and talk about a lot of it. So when you do read it, you're going to go, oh, wait, now I actually understand this more because he made a reference to this on one of his podcasts. Okay. 3:33 here. Is that 3:33 p.m. or 3:33 a.m. over there? Right? I think you're saying 3:33 p.m. Well, it's 3:33 p.m. for me. So you're 3:34 now. So you're somewhere West Coast, North America, if it's 3:30 for you. So that means you're either in California, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, and maybe a little bit over. Sunday, if you're in the United States, Sunday is I think it's, I don't know if it's Sunday, Saturday night going into Sunday or Sunday night going, but it is we fall back. We fall back here in the United States. In most states, not all states go by that, but if you're living in a state that does do the time change, Sunday's the time change here in the United States. So we fall back an hour, and I'm not exactly sure if it's 2 a.m. Sunday morning. It must be, because they said it was 2 a.m. Sunday. So Saturday night before you go to bed, set your clocks back, guys, because Sunday is the time change. Okay, so the religions have been corrupted in some respects 1,000 years ago, especially when they did the Council of Nicaea for the Christian religion, the first and second Council of Nicaea. But there was many councils where they were editing books out. It was the first and second Council of Nicaea where they took a lot of 186 books out of the Bible and changed things. And they were doing that to change the narrative of who Jesus was and what he was and what they wanted him to represent. That's why the New Testament only has 4 books that tell you the story of Jesus: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. There were 12 apostles. Okay. And all of them wrote stuff down, but they only have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Why? Because the other ones were right. James wrote them. I've read James' stuff. And they were like, yeah, well, we can't prove that was James' stuff because it was written a long time after Jesus died. And I'm like, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were written 100 years to 400 years after Jesus was born. Okay? Luke was written in the year 104 or 5. Or was that Mark? Mark. And then everybody else was written after that, somewhere around the year 200, 350, and 400. Okay? So none of those people from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John that were with Jesus. None of them. Okay? I've even read the Mary Magdalene scroll. Okay? And they don't even tell you about that. They say she didn't even have a scroll. Yes, she did. I've read it. They mention it if you watch Angel Studios show. What is it called? The Chosen. They mentioned it in the season 3 episode. Oh, don't quote me on it. It was the episode that was 2 weeks ago. I don't remember the name of the episode. I usually pay attention to that and remember it, but I didn't think I was going to talk about it today, so I didn't remember it. But they did the entire episode opens with Mary and Matthew. Yeah, Mary and Matthew when they were old. They were probably my age, in their 50s. And they were because Mary lived in a cave for a long time afterwards. And Matthew showed up. So I think she was in France at the time. Don't quote me on that, but I believe she was in France at the time. And Matthew showed up and they were in the cave, and he noticed that she was writing. And she asked him to read her stuff because she wanted him to organize it for her because he was better at that. And so he was reading, and they were talking about what she had written down. And so Angel Studios included that because they know that the book is out there. It was part of the Dead Sea Scrolls that they found during the Dead Sea Scrolls finding, along with James and a few other people that were part of the apostle team. And everybody at the Council of Nicaea discounted those and said, well, there is no definitive proof that those were actually those people. And I was like, but you included Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and none of those were written by the actual people. They claimed that that's who it was, that Matthew was the Matthew that did that. well, okay, it was only 100 years later, so it is possible that it was the real Matthew and somebody had a copy of it. I get that. But it was just as possible that all of the other ones were the same, right? But they were kind of redundant, right? Because James does a lot of stuff the same that they do for the Quran. The Quran, everything starts out with, remember Moses said this, and Moses said that, and Moses said this. James is, Jesus said, remember Jesus said, and it's all the quotes that Jesus said. He jotted them down. So he didn't write it like a story. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are all written like a story, on it's chronicling their the actual events, all of them. Okay, and so they kept those books in, where the rest of them were references and quotes of things that Jesus said that are not in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. A lot of them are. There's a ton of them that are, but there's some that are sayings that Jesus said that are not in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And the people who wanted to keep Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in there because they were storyline stories, like a movie script. So because of that, they only left in the books that talked about what was talked about in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And those are written in completely different perspectives as well, because there's only one book out of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I think it's Matthew that actually, that's why they started with it. It is Matthew, that talks about Jesus when he was a child. Everyone else talks about Jesus when he was 30, up to when he was 33, last 3 years of his life. Only Matthew tells of Jesus when he was a boy and then when he was a man. So that's the only book of the Bible that we have any reference of Mary, not Mary Magdalene, but Holy Mary, Mother of God, and Joseph. So without Matthew, we don't even have those two characters, or Bethlehem and Nazareth or any of that. You have the rest of them because he was being called the Nazarene in Mark, Luke, and John. So there was a reference that he came from Nazareth, right? And I'm giving you guys theology, right? I'm a theologian, so now I'm giving you theology, Christian theology, right? Okay, so let me go ahead and start here with the law of one. You guys let me know if you can hear it, okay? And we'll do a sound check, and then we'll get started here, okay?
July 26th, 1981. 64.0 Ra. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now.
Yes, Cassie, now that I have my glasses on, Kathy said, and Jesus' brother, Thomas, right? Yeah, and Thomas is one of the books that is there as well. There's a lot more books. If you read the Dead Sea Scrolls, you will hear there's a ton of books that in there that you can read that they took out. James, Thomas, oh God, what other books did they take out? The Book of Truth. There was, oh man, what else? The Book of Jude. I think they put her back in, but it's been edited. Oh, I can't think of all the books. I have some of them on my phone. Now you got me. We're going to pull it up, Cassie, and name some of them here. I apologize for those of you who are going, why aren't you playing the law of one? Right? So hold on here. Let me get to my photos and scroll down here, and I'll tell you some of them that I actually do have pictures of on my phone because of when I was studying them and rereading them. Here we go. So I have, let's see, Thomas, Philip, Truth, Judas, Mary, the Apocrypha of John. Let's see, the Exgenesis of the Soul, Three Sails of Seth, the Apostle of Augustus, the Gnostic Bible, the Book of Thomas, the Contender, the Gnostic Apocalypse of Peter, and the Apocalypse of Peter. Let me see if if they have more here. I think that's all that I have listed here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's that number, 13. There's 13 scrolls right there, 13 full books that's just 13 of them. There's many more that were in the Dead Sea Scrolls that they had found. Deborah, welcome. Did I miss anybody? I apologize if you guys said something in the chat and I missed you guys and didn't say hello. Okay, so Did anybody tell me that you guys could hear? Thank you, Penny, said it sounds good. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start session 64 of the Law of One. But you'll see as we go that it actually pertains to the spirituality of what I've been talking about, not specifically the books from the Christian pantheon in the Dead Sea, because that obviously didn't happen until about 1,000 years after Jesus was gone, and you know what I mean. But the idea of what happened is what Raw is telling you, that things were edited and controlled, and the religions are now controlled. The books are still sound. You can still read all Bibles from every religion and still find the ascension in there, because the people who were trying to edit it didn't actually understand what the books they left in were actually saying. And so because of that, they didn't edit them out. Like in the book of Revelation of Jesus, the letters to the churches, they just assumed they were letters sent out to specific actual churches around the world that Jesus was talking to. And because they were actual places, some of them, they assumed in the future, well, that must have been a church that was there that's gone now. Where I break that down. I tell you about it in this book that I just released in June, The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways. And then I show you and explain to you in this next book what the words meant of the churches. Like Philadelphia, they're like, well, that was a church that was over there in the East. So he was just talking to the head of that church over there in the East. The word Philadelphia doesn't mean that. It means something else. And it coincides with a chakra. Okay, if you read the letters to the churches, pull up on your computer all of the chakras, start at the red ray root chakra, and read the first letter to the church and look up what that word meant in Sanskrit or in Yiddish, because the Yiddish is a derivative of Sanskrit, because it was originally written in Sanskrit. Find out what that word means, not the place, the church, but the word, and what the definition in Hebrew and Sanskrit and Pharisee, because those are the three main languages that were spoken at the time of Jesus. And everything came from Sanskrit. Even Coptic came from Sanskrit. Even cuneiform for the Mesopotamians is an evolution of Sanskrit, although it's a pictorial writing, but it's still the language base is Sanskrit. Even though they use the cuneiform lettering, just like the Hebrew, or the Egyptian language is a pictorial form, but the base spoken language is derived from the Sanskrit, which is crazy, right? People don't realize that. And if you talk to a linguist, they'll tell you that if you learn Yiddish and Pharisee in Arabic today, you can pick up the similarities between all of them. And when you go back to Sanskrit, you realize that they all evolved from Sanskrit, the same way that this language that I'm speaking to you now evolved from Latin, right? So it's in the alphabet that we use in this language is the Viking alphabet. So the language is a blending of Futhark and Latin. That's what English is. And all the European languages, French, German, Spanish, Mexican, all of the Svenska, all of the northern languages, including Polish and Russian, all of those are a blend of Greek, Latin, and the Viking languages. The further east you go, the more you get the Greek influence, and then the further west you go, you lose the Greek influence, and you pick up the Latin influence as you go towards Italy in the languages. So Spanish is literally from Latin, and English is a language that is encompassing all of those languages as it evolved over to into Gaelic, Gallic, Welsh, and then blending that with the Viking language, and then there you go, and you have English. Okay, so let me go ahead and start the Law of One, but you'll see where I'm going with the spirituality as we get into the Law of One here, and that changing of what happened, and us needing to repair what's going on here so that we can get everything back to and returning to the old ways. So you should take a look at my book. Go online and look it up. The reality about reality, returning to the old ways. And you can get it anywhere on the planet currently. I don't know any country except for, like, say, Russia, China, and North Korea, because they're communist countries. They won't allow my book to be sold in their country. And I'm not sure about Russia, but I know that China won't sell my book, and neither will North Korea. All right, let's continue.
64.1 Questioner. Could you first tell me the condition of the instrument? Ra. I am Ra. It is as previously stated, with the exception of a transitory distortion lessening the free flow of vital energy. 64.2 Questioner. Can you tell what the transitory distortion is? Ra. I am Ra. This is marginal information. 64.3 Questioner. Then we won't question on it. I would like to ask first about a mistake I believe that I might have made in the last session on the number of wanderers on Earth today. Did I make an error? Ra. I am Ra. You and Ra made an error. The appropriate number of your ciphers is one less than previously stated. 64.4 Questioner.
At the time in 1981, when he asked that, there was, I think he said 640 million wanderers. Today, there is approximately, there's 8 billion humans. There's approximately 5 billion wanderers on this earth. Most of you don't know who you are. 90% don't know who you are. And I would say that that's being generous to the 10%, because I don't think that 10% is awake either. I think it's really only about, they're telling me 7, but I was going to say 6 or 5%. About 7% of the wanderers are fully awake. I mean, unveiled, right? So there's 7% of the population that is unveiled that are wanderers. And then there's another 4% of the population that is completely unveiled that are from here. But they're not wanting to leave either. No one wants to leave. Even if they're unveiled, they stay to help, because then once you're unveiled, you realize what's going on here. And then if you're in service to others, you stay and help out. If you're in service to self, you get out of here as fast as you can, because you don't want to have to do this again, because this is one of the hardest things to do in the universe. It is the hardest thing to do in the universe, but third-dimensional matrices, this specific planet with this kind of scenario, as rare as it is the hardest thing to go through in the universe currently. And there's only, in this galaxy, this is only the second time that it's been this stuck, this hard, for this long. Not on accident, but on purpose. Because, the people on Mars were stuck for 125,000 years, but they did it to themselves, and they were kind of catatonic. In a catatonic state, they did that to themselves. So it wasn't through a nefarious act on purpose by people trying to conquer them and turn them into slaves. They blew themselves up and got their souls stuck. Okay, so that kind of stuff happens, but this place was hostilely taken over, and is still in the throes. The evil people are gone; they ran for the hills, but the mechanism is still in place, and we're repairing that. All right, let's continue.
Thank you. Could you explain the basic principles behind the ritual which we perform to initiate the contact, and what I would call the basic white magical rituals, principles of protection, and other principles? Could you please do this? Ra. I am Ra. Due to your avenue of question, we perceive the appropriateness of inclusion of the cause of this instrument's transitory vital energy distortion. The cause is a bias towards the yearning for expression of devotion to the one creator in group worship. This entity was yearning for this protection both consciously in that it responds to the accoutrements of this expression, the ritual, the colors, and their meanings as given by the distortion system of what you call the church, the song of praise, and the combined prayers of thanksgiving, and, most of all, that which may be seen to be most centrally magical, the intake of that food which is not of this dimension but has been transmuted into metaphysical nourishment in what this distortion of expression calls the Holy Communion. The subconscious reason, it being the stronger for this yearning, was the awareness that such expression is, when appreciated by an entity as the transmutation into the presence of the one creator, a great protection of the entity as it moves in the path of service to others. The principle behind any ritual of the white magical nature is to so configure the stimuli which reach down into the trunk of mind that this arrangement causes the generation of disciplined and purified emotion or love, which then may be both protection and the key to the gateway to intelligent infinity. 64.5 Questioner. Can you tell me why the slight error made in the ritual starting this communication 2 sessions ago allowed the intrusion of one Orion-affiliated entity? Ra. I am Ra. This contact is narrowband and its preconditions precise. The other self offering its service in the negative path also is possessed of the skill of the swordsman. You deal in this contact with, shall we say, forces of great intensity poured into a vessel as delicate as a snowflake and as crystalline. The smallest of lapses may disturb the regularity of this pattern of energies which forms the channel for these transmissions. We may note for your information that our pause was due to the necessity of being quite sure that the mind/body/spirit complex of the instrument was safely in the proper light configuration or density before we dealt with the situation. Far better would it be to allow the shell to become unviable than to allow the mind/body/spirit complex to be, shall we say, misplaced. 64.6 Questioner. Could you describe or tell me of rituals or technique used by RA in seeking in the direction of service? Ra. I am Ra. To speak of that which sixth density social memory complexes labor within in order to advance is at best misprision of plain communication, for much is lost in transmission of concept from density to density, and the discussion of sixth density is inevitably distorted greatly. How?
Let me stop right there real quick. Danny said, Danny, is it, what is the last name? Petri? Danny Petri. Is that like, what's his name from Dick Van Dyke? Is that any relation to that name, or is that your actual name? Danny Petri said, hey, it's getting crazy out there. Something shifted. Yeah, no, that's happening a lot. That's why I stopped to address that. Hi, Danny, by the way. So that's happening a lot. It's the new moon from the last harvest moon. So the harvest moon was 15 days ago, and this is the new moon, and this is the 11th month. And I talked about that early. 1111 is the angel number or the star number that you should look up. And we're going into 1111, which is also a holiday here in the United States. It's and I was unaware of that until I think it was Denise or Penny that pointed that out. I don't remember which one of you. I apologize. Pointed that out to me, that it's on Monday, the 11th. There's a lot of stuff that's going on this year for the last 4 years now. For the last 4 years, from 2020 until now, the first 3 years, 2020, 2021, and 2022, were activation years that even the Hopi Indians here in the United States and the Aborigines in Australia were talking about. And there has been rituals that those of us that are in the know around the world have been performing during the full moons, specifically the harvest full moons of starting in May and in through September, October, and November, going into the solstices from each year, starting with the spring, going spring, summer, autumn, winter, in that order every single year, going to the winter equinox, literally at the having rituals around the world at the chakra centers for the planet. And if Rick were here, he's in Uluru currently, and it works there, and is one of the guides for the tour guide there, and gets to talk to people, and he gets to see that. That's the navel chakra of the earth. I live less than 150 miles south of the red ray root chakra, which is at Mount Shasta in the state of California here in the United States. Anybody who lives in Newgrange, England, that right in that area, you have two chakras. Stonehenge is sitting on the which one is it? The heart chakra. And west of Stonehenge in England currently is the third eye chakra, which the third eye chakra moves around the earth. It's the only one that's not set and fixed. It actually moves at different places on the earth. And currently they're almost merged. The third eye with the heart chakra are only about 150 miles apart currently. And it's about to move again. And people don't know about that because we're fixing the ley lines of the earth so it's going to now move somewhere in the Himalayan mountains, which is where it was before. And it's moving back to that soon, possibly as early as 2026. but it'll only move on a feminine year, and this is a feminine year. It's not going to move in 2025. It'll move in 2026 because the Earth, Gaia, is more of a feminine energy currently than she used to be. That's why people refer to as she. So that's going to move as we fix the ley line. So the last 3 years, 4 years, the first three, 2021, 2020, 21, 22, going into 23, were activation years to activate all of the people on the earth to start waking them up. 2024 is the first feminine year, moving into the age of Aquarius and solidifying that feminine energy. Next year is going to be a strife year. You think this year is crazy. Next year is going to be a masculine year. So you're going to have a little bit of the Mars Kundalini energy, as opposed to now we're having the Kunda buffer energy. But each year as we go into 2026, the feminine energy is going to get stronger, and there's going to be less violence on the earth and more love. But you're going to have the darkest time just before 2030, going into 2031, 2032, and 2033. So there's going to be some scariness around 2030, where it's going to be like 2019 through 2022, 2023, when we had COVID. You're going to have another one in 2030 that's going to happen. That is going to be the last ditch effort by the evil people on this earth to try and gain control again. So you're going to see the scenario. If you're young enough, if you're in your 80s, you may not see it, but if you're young enough, you're going to see around 2030, it's going to happen all over again. It's going to be called something different, but it's going to be basically similar, and they're going to try and scare the world into thinking we're all going to die, and that the whole world's going to end and stuff like that. So, but to be more specific, we're fixing the ley lines of the earth, all of the energy grid of the earth, as we're tilting the earth back up on its axis to get it back to the 0 point, which it will reach by 2050. It's going to reach that point of 0 point again. There's nothing they can do about it unless they try to blow the planet up again. But they tried that in the 90s. I'm not going to get involved in that, but it didn't work, obviously. So they're trying now to get us into a third world war so they can put a lot of people to sleep by killing off a quarter of the planet or more in a third world war. So they're trying that, but we're shifting things. And as we shift things, it's fixing the timeline here. And some of you are capable of sensing that there's a shift. Some of you actually sense the shift and see the things that change, and they call those the Mandela effect, but they still haven't been able to explain how it is that people from completely different DNA strands, different cultures, different races, raised not even eating the same food or going to the same schools or even reading the same doctrine, somehow have the exact same memory that has changed. Science can't explain it, and they just go, it's the Mandela effect, and it's just something you guys are remembering wrong. And they give no explanation because they have no idea. They're scared to death. And then you have other people that go, oh, it's CERN, it's the evil people doing it. They wish they were doing it. They have no idea how to explain it, and it scares them because they know that things are changing in the space-time continuum, and the fabric of space-time is changing, and they can't stop it from happening, and they have no idea, and they wish they could harness that power to figure it out. It's us. We're fixing it. There are billions of us on this earth that are here to do just that, and we're fixing that. While we're writing that, we're writing the population of this planet, and all of the energy of the collective consciousness of this planet is changing the planet at the same time. So we're going into the planet and fixing it, and that's helping to shift everybody. And so the all changes. And so you're feeling and sensing that it's kind of crazy because there's a shift, and you're not sure. It creates anxiety if you're unaware of what's happened or why. And so it gets a little overwhelming at first until you get used to the sensation of it happening, because every time it happens, evil people are aware of it, the 14% on the earth, and 1% of that 14% controls everything. So they step up the fear in the world at that time to get everybody afraid, because if everybody's afraid, they're easier to control. It's part of the modus operandi of the Orion Crusaders, which Ra is talking about constantly. Danny said, I quit smoking my RSO. Well, I mean, that kind of stuff's up to you, what you're going to do, right? And then Penny says, wait, let's see what else Danny said. Danny said, everything that we're taught in history is lies and the things are reversed, but you know that. Yes, no, you're absolutely right. Let me put that up on the screen for people to see. No, you're absolutely right. That's what we're here to fix. Literally, even the saying, as above, so below is backwards. It's a lie. The actual saying is as below, so above. As above, so below, as without, so within is the corruption. They're both lies. It's actually as below, so above, as within, so without. And people go, do you have any proof of that? Actually, it's in the Bible. It's actually in the Christian Bible. You can look it up in Matthew 3:18. Okay, you can look that up. I should have. I didn't know I was going to say that. I would have brought my Bible over here. That's the part where Jesus is telling that God said, what you sow on earth, I shall too sow in heaven. That means as below, so above. Not what I say you do, but what you say I do. At what you reap on earth, I shall too reap in heaven. What you sow on earth, the other way around. What you sow on earth, I shall too sow in heaven. What you reap on earth, I shall too sow and reap in heaven. That means as below, so above, as within, so without. Doesn't mean the other way around. So there's no reference to that being said, as above, so below, as without, so within. Okay? That got changed somewhere and added to all the religions. But there is definite, in the Bibles, definite knowledge where it's saying as below, so above, as within, so without, prior to the corruption. It's just like the Garden of Eden story and the corruption saying that women are evil and that they're the original sin. That storyline was corrupted. I talk about that in my book, the reality about reality, returning to the old ways. And that what that corruption was, what the editing was, and that was to shut up women and to keep them from using their knowledge and their feminine energy, so that men would focus on the masculine energy only, the Kundalini energy, not the Kunda buffer. That's why to this day, you don't hear people talk about the Kundalini energy and the Kunda buffer energy. You only hear the word Kundalini, masculine, male, war, dominated energy. People, when they say that, even in that religion in the East, they say Kundalini, the Kundalini snake, the Kundalini energy. There's two energies. There's two snakes that intertwine. That's why if you look at the Vikings and the Celts, they have two lines that are the Celtic knotwork, because there's masculine and feminine energies. Okay, so originally in the Eastern thoughts of Zen, of Buddhism, of Taoism, they talked about Kundalini energy and Kunda buffer energy. The Kunda buffer energy was taken out of the equation, and you only learn about Kundalini because they only want you thinking about the masculine war, male energy. They don't want you thinking about or even venerating the feminine. Feminine was edited out of almost all religions as a somebody that was a servant to the man. And all the books in the Bibles that referred to the creator as either a dual aspect or an androgynous creator were all edited out. So there was no feminine, no female, and only the religions that refused to become Christianized kept that. The Hebrews have one God, masculine, and all of the religions that were based on that, they're all warlike. All of the religions that they tried to keep were warlike. All of the religions that had a feminine goddess, unless there was the dual aspect like the Vikings, but they don't teach you about the equality of that religion in the Vikings. They only teach you about Thor and Odin and Loki, the men. They don't teach you about Hela. They don't teach you about Freya, Freyr. They don't teach you about any of the feminine gods, goddesses. The Greeks also resisted that, but Zeus is touted as the all god who is in charge. So is Odin. He's the all father. So they've been bastardized into masculine, warlike religions. but some of them kept the female goddesses in there. The biggest problem that the Romans had with the Celts, the southern Vikings, was that they couldn't convert them, and they were more afraid of their feminine Mav, the feminine goddess, and offending her than they were the Zeus and the like from the Roman gods. They didn't fear the Roman gods. They feared offending the feminine goddess who was in charge until the Christians came and tried to stamp that religion out. Okay, let me continue here. Right, so the crucifying will make people mad. It needed to be done again, from what I see. Are you talking about the crucifying of Jesus? Well, they had to do the cycle. See, now you're getting me going on that. The Jesus character, and I only say character, I should really say caricature, was the 12th one. So they had to, that persona, that soul who played that role of Jesus, who came down, did that 11 times prior to the Jesus. Hundreds of years apart. 11 times going back more than 12,000 years on this earth. You can look that up. There's usually stuff online that like 7 are showing that everything that Jesus of Nazareth did, walked on water, turned water to wine, made food appear out of nowhere, made the blind see, rose the dead. All of the things that he did, people did all around the world. One person did 11 different times because they had to create the cycle of 12. He had to create the cycle of 12. So it had to happen all the way to the Jesus character. And there's a reason why he came through with the name Jesus. Okay. And actually said that time, the way to heaven is through me. And people don't talk about this because they don't know this here on this planet. Okay. The collective consciousness that makes up the Milky Way galaxy as one collective soul is Jesus. Okay, so you were part of the Jesus consciousness. So it had to go through the cycle of the 12, and on the 12th one, giving you the actual name Jesus, because it has to do with the collective. And when you says the way to heaven is through me, in your evolution, in your ascension, you will go from an individual soul to a collective soul mind by the time you get into the 6th density. And then as you move up from there to the 7th and the 8th, you will then become one, that collective consciousness. The entire hive mind species will start to talk to other people, and then they'll start to blend together into a larger group of people. And that, when they become one, is our Milky Way galaxy. And then the Milky Way galaxy, as you move up as that collective consciousness, you become the Jesus consciousness. You will then move up and start associating with all of the other galaxies in this universe. And then eventually you will start, as a collective, start merging with all of the galaxies to make up the universe that we're in as one collective mind. And there are other universes. And science is actually realizing this now with the telescopes that we now have, that there are other universes. So then the universes will start communicating with each other, and then they move up, and we don't know how far that goes, whether there's the universes become a multiverse, and there's many other multiverses that you collectively come in contact with, because you don't get to know that down here, because now you're talking about the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and all the way to the 12th, the last 5, before you become one with the creator itself. So we don't know how far that goes. We can't know that down here. And it's hard for me to even give you that kind of information down here, because you're not supposed to know it. Once you move from the 7th into the 8th, you don't get to know anything that goes on there. They don't tell us down here what goes on up there. So this octave is 0 through 7 is the bottom octave. And then 8 through 12 is the next octave. Okay. And people talk about how there's 24 and in the Chinese and the Japanese say there's 33. Okay. So there's some speculation as to how far that goes before you become one with the creator of the universe. I don't know if that gives you any kind of information or not, right? My friend's daughter just had her first baby, and it has full black eyes. Usually when they come out, they're either black or blue. When a child's first born, you look in their eyes. They're even the kids that are going to have brown eyes come out with blue eyes first, and sometimes black. So that does happen. It'll change. They look black because they're just really dark brown. So the child will either have brown eyes or blue eyes, but that develops as time goes. That's just normal. That's what happens. Okay, let's continue here.
However, we shall attempt to speak to your query, for it is an helpful one in that it allows us to express once again the total unity of creation. We seek the Creator upon a level of shared experience to which you are not privy, and rather than surrounding ourselves in light, we have become light. Our understanding is that there is no other material except light. Our rituals, as you may call them, are an infinitely subtle continuation of the balancing processes which you are now beginning to experience. We seek now without polarity. Thus we do not invoke any power from without, for our search has become internalized as we become light/love and love/light. These are the balances we seek. The balances between compassion and wisdom, which more and more allow our understanding of experience to be informed, that we may come closer to the unity with the one Creator which we so joyfully seek. Your rituals at your level of progress contain the concept of polarization, and this is most central at your particular space/time. We may answer further if you have specific queries. 64.7 Questioner: would it be helpful if RA were to describe the techniques used while RA was in third density to evolve in mind, body, and spirit? Ra: I am Ra. This query lies beyond the law of confusion. 64.8 Questioner: what about fourth density experience of RA? Would that also lie beyond the law of confusion? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. Let us express a thought. RA is not elite. To speak of our specific experiences to a group which honors us is to guide to the point of a specific advising. Our work was that of your peoples, of experiencing the catalyst of joys and sorrows. Our circumstances were somewhat more harmonious. Let it be said that any entity or group may create the most splendid harmony in any outer atmosphere. Ra's experiences are no more than your own. Yours is the dance at this space/time and third density harvest. 64.9 Questioner: the question was brought up recently having to do with possible records left near, in, or under the Great Pyramid at Giza. I have no idea whether this would be of benefit. I will just ask if there is any benefit in investigating in this area. Ra: I am Ra. We apologize for seeming to be so shy of information. However, any words upon this particular subject create the possibility of infringement upon free will. 64.10 Questioner: in a previous session you mentioned the gateway of magic for the adept occurring in 18-day cycles. Could you expand on that information, please? Ra: I am Ra. The mind/body/spirit complex is born under a series of influences, both lunar, planetary, cosmic, and in some cases, karmic. The moment of the birthing into this illusion begins the cycles we have mentioned. The spiritual or adept cycle is an 18-day cycle and operates with the qualities of the sine wave. Thus there are a few excellent days on the positive side of the curve, that being the first 9 days of the cycle, precisely the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th, when workings are most appropriately undertaken, given that the entity is still without total conscious control of its mind/body/spirit distortion/reality. The most interesting portion of this information, like that of each cycle, is the noting of the critical point wherein, passing from the 9th to the 10th and from the 18th to the 1st days, the adept will experience some difficulty, especially when there is a transition occurring in another cycle at the same time. At the nadir of each cycle, the adept will be at its least powerful but will not be open to difficulties in nearly the degree that it experiences at critical times. 64.11 Questioner: then to find the cycles we would take the instant of birth and the emerging of the infant from the mother into this density and start the cycle at that instant and continue it through the life. Is this correct? Ra: I am Ra. This is mostly correct. It is not necessary to identify the instant of birthing. The diurnal cycle upon which this event occurs is satisfactory for all but the most fine workings. 64.12 Questioner: now, am I correct in assuming that whatever magic the adept would perform would be more successful, or, shall we say, more to his design than that performed at less opportune times in the cycle? Ra, I am Ra. This cycle is an helpful tool to the adept, but as we said, as the adept becomes more balanced, the workings designed will be dependent less and less upon these cycles of opportunity and more even in their efficacy.
Right. So we talked about this last week. And I talked about it on Wednesday, but we're not live on air in the Wednesday Q&A. When we're teaching people, when I've been teaching people and the people that I've worked with, teaching people, dealing with magic and spell casting and casting circles or rituals, we introduce you as a young adept with tools, physical tools that you use. And over time, we move you into taking away the tools from you. So, and integrating you with the idea and the understanding that you are the actual tool and you don't need these crutches. But to manifest those, for those people who are new at something, it's best to give them something tangible to work with that they can manifest more, because they'll believe that that object has the ability to do what they're wanting, and they don't realize that they're giving that object the ability to have that task. But that helps them with the manifestation and the focus by giving them something to focus on. So we start everybody when we do low magic with tools, and then eventually we start reintegrating you into the idea that it's you that's doing that, not the tool itself. And then we tell you why you were introduced with the tool. So that's like Harry Potter with a wand. Eventually he wouldn't need the wand. You wouldn't need the spells, the words, the incantations. You wouldn't need the rituals and the incense and the whatever else that you would need, the altar and all of the things. That is for the young, involving that to get you into that place where you're understanding that it's you that's the creator, it's you that's the manifester, it's you that's doing that. And by the time you learn all of that and you don't need tools anymore, and then we taught classes, I talked about that. We taught classes on instant rituals, instant spell castings that you can do without having to do a 30-day ritual or a 90-day ritual, or you can only cleanse something on a full moon, and you can only imprint something on a new moon, because that's what you'll learn if you're into any kind of Wicca, pagan, druidry. In the beginning, when you're a young adept, they will be teaching you that way, to where you have rituals, because they want you to become in tune with nature. So the cycles of nature are important when you're young, and when you're just learning as an adept. When you become a learned or a magi, you then can realize that you can use the nature and the optimum times, but you don't necessarily have to have them. To reinforce things, you can use a full moon, you can use a new moon, you can use a half moon, you can use a solstice. When you're trying to do things for the betterment of the people and make it very strong and powerful, then we do rituals on solstices, we do rituals on full moons and super moons and new moons and specific dates where full moons fall on. That stuff is something you need to learn about. So you were learning this information as you're learning that you don't need that stuff, but you need to know that stuff, because you have to be in tune with nature, and you have to be able to figure that out so that you can grow and expand. And this is what Ross talking about here. To know the cycle of your birth is good for you as you're growing, to then also realize the cycle of nature and the cycle of the year and the months and all of that are entailed in that. And then you're supposed to gravitate upwards and expand your consciousness, so that you then get into high magic. That's magic with a K, or high spirituality, and learning the skills that you have, the extrasensory skills that you have, and the abilities that you have to create if you're in service to others, that you can then tap into the Akashic records, tap into your higher self, make communication and have regular conversations with your dead relatives or your ancestors or your guides or your higher self, and then go to the Akashic Records and be able to channel this information. That's all supposed to be a part of the ascension process that you're supposed to learn along the way, but they edited all of that part out and only kept in the negative portion of living in the flesh. They took away the spiritual from all of those equations and kept you stuck just in the physical, because that's where they want you. They want you as 11 years to 12 years old mentally, and they want you living in the flesh and worrying about clicks and likes and power and money and fame and doing your job. And if you're not trying to get ahead by clicks, powers, money, and fame, they just want you to get a freaking job and serve them as a worker. As a slave, and you just do your job, and then you go through your whole life, and what they tell you that you should look forward to is retirement. And retirement is literally 10 to 15, if you're lucky, 20 years of your life, the last part of it, when you are no good to them anymore because you can't physically serve them the way they want you to. But they don't want to just give you retirement. They want you to take care of yourself, and then they want you to spend all the money that you have, that you've collected in that last 20 years, and buy big houses and cars and party and not leave any of it to your kids and waste it all as you die. That's their plan. That's their modus operandi. Okay, let's continue here.
64.13 Questioner. I have no ability to judge at what level of abilities the adept would reach this point of being, shall we say, independent of the cyclical action. Can you give me an indication of what level of adeptness that would be necessary to be so independent? Ra, I am Ra. We are fettered from speaking specifically due to this group's work, for to speak would seem to be to judge. However, we may say that you may consider this cycle in the same light as the so-called astrological balances within your group, that is, they are interesting but not critical. 64.14 Questioner. Thank you. I read that recent research has indicated that the normal sleep cycle for entities on this planet occurs 1 hour later each diurnal period, so that we have a 25-hour cycle instead of a 24. Is this correct? And if so, why is this? Ra, I am Ra. This is in some cases correct. The planetary influences from which those of Mars experience memory have some effect upon these third-density physical bodily complexes. This race has given its genetic material to many bodies upon your plane. 64.15 Questioner.
See, so Mars has a 25-hour, or had a 25-hour day. There are a lot of humans here that our clock naturally runs on a 25-hour clock, not a 24-hour clock. This is what he's referring to here. Why is it that most humans run on a 25-hour clock, not a 24-hour clock? There was a time when the Earth moved faster around the sun, and so it was a 25-hour clock. It was longer for the evolution of the people on Earth time period where we had a 25-hour day, but it's slowed down now so that we have a 24, less, not exactly 24, but less than 25 hours. But we have, our clocks are all scheduled for 24. So there's some weirdness to that, some quantum weirdness to it. It's supposed to be 24, but when the Earth flipped over on its axis and flipped back up, it was spinning faster and it's slowing down as we're riding it. So to get back to 24, because 24 is 2 times 12 and it's even, and it's supposed to be that way. So but there's still some residuals in people's DNA that says that they're on a 25-hour clock, not a 24-hour clock, because a lot of things got changed when it got changed. So a lot of the DNA shifted along with the planet itself. We're fixing all of that. Most of the people on this Earth have no idea that that's what's happening.
Thank you. R.A. mentioned the ones Stewart and Douglas in a recent session. These are members of what we call our medical profession. What is the value, overall value, shall I say, of modern medical techniques in alleviating bodily distortions with respect to the purpose for these distortions and what we might call karma and other effects? Ra, I am Ra. This query is convoluted. However, we shall make some observations in lieu of attempting one coherent answer, for that which is allopathic among your healing practices is somewhat two-sided. Firstly, you must see the possibility/probability that each and every allopathic healer is in fact an healer. Within your cultural nexus, this training is considered the appropriate means of perfecting the healing ability. In the most basic sense, any allopathic healer may be seen to, perhaps, be one whose desire is service to others in alleviation of bodily complex and mental/emotional complex distortions, so that the entity to be healed may experience further catalyst over a longer period of what you call the life. This is a great service to others when appropriate, due to the accumulation of distortions toward wisdom and love which can be created through the use of the space/time continuum of your illusion. In observing the allopathic concept of the body complex as the machine, we may note the symptomology of a societal complex seemingly dedicated to the most intransigent desire for the distortions of distraction, anonymity, and sleep. This is the result rather than the cause of societal thinking upon your plane. In turn, this mechanical concept of the body complex has created the continuing proliferation of distortions towards what you would call ill health due to the strong chemicals used to control and hide bodily distortions. There is a realization among many of your peoples that there are more efficacious systems of healing, not excluding the allopathic but also including the many other avenues of healing. 64.16 Questioner.
Right, so there's a lot more people that are looking at holistic ideology these days than there were before. But you have to realize that if you go back far enough, that's all there was. It's only in the modern era that everybody has relied on and was forced to rely on hospitals and doctors. Because if you go back in time, 200 years ago, people took care of themselves. There wasn't so many hospitals, and there wasn't a lot of drugs, and the doctors were quacks, and people believed that. So the first thing they do is either stick leeches on you and bleed you dry, or start sawing pieces of you off. So people were like, I don't want to even go to those people because they don't know what they're doing. So you had people that were more figuring out natural remedies, which is what all modern medicine is based on. But they've changed it to where it's only chemicals, not natural things. They don't give you natural things, and they tell you that natural things don't do anything. But everything that they have that is a drug is based on something that was natural on this earth, and now they don't acknowledge it because they're manufacturing it. Okay, so like aspirin. Aspirin was based on white willow bark, right? You can still buy it. I have some willow bark in my bathroom. You can get that. That was what they've discovered, that it was a painkiller that is in other things too, that you can look this stuff up, that have the same properties, anti-inflammatory properties. What they started doing was figuring out how they could, first they started growing that stuff. That was how it started. They started growing all those things and using that to manufacture the medicine. Then you had guys like the Rockefellers who decided that they could take everything from their oil and create everything by breaking down pieces of and the chemical structure of oil and then adding other things in. And then they started creating the pharmaceutical companies. And then they immediately went around the world, and got whatever Food and Drug Administration of whatever country and the EPA groups from all the countries paid them all off to say that, like currently, nothing does anything unless it's made from a pharmaceutical company. But everything that they have is, whenever somebody would discover something in nature, they would go and say, how can we now manufacture this without that nature? And they create one out of all these drugs that they've now come up with that does the same thing. And then they pay somebody to get them to say that doesn't do anything. There's no definitive proof, but this does. And that's what they've done. You can look this up. This isn't a conspiracy theory. I didn't make this up. And that's what they've done, so that way, and they don't care. They get themselves into a position and pay people off like they did with COVID around the world, to where you can't sue the pharmaceutical company over, here in the United States, that's the case. If they kill your relative and you prove that it was the shot that they got that killed them, not COVID itself, you can't sue them because they got total carte blanche from the federal government of the United States saying that nobody can sue us no matter what happens to them. Okay. And then they made $10 trillion off of you. And there's nothing you can do about it now. And that's what's going on. Some countries refused that, and now they're suing these companies. But if you're living in the United States or in one of the countries to where that is banned, you don't get to know that because they don't tell you that, because the same people who own the pharmaceutical companies are the same people that own your news networks, and they're not allowing you to know what's going on. So you don't know that countries are suing these pharmaceutical companies for crimes against the humanity that they did against their citizens. and making them pay the relatives of those citizens money as restitution for the damage and death of these people. That's going on around the world. And if you live in one of those countries, you know what I'm talking about. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, and you think it's a conspiracy theory that I'm telling you this. But it's actually happening. Okay. All right. So let me, Joanne says, yeah, I love using Amica for effective anti-inflammatory. It was brilliant when I had a tooth pain, right? Yeah, depending on what you use, and knowing that if you know the natural remedies, you're going to find that your body doesn't reject it. You don't have side effects, and it doesn't do damage to your body because it's natural, unless it's not natural, and you got to be careful of that, or if it's something that might be a carcinogen or a poison. But when you figure this stuff out, then your doctors will freak out when you stop taking their medicine, because they're like, you're going to die. No, I'm not taking that medicine anymore because I don't need it. Because I fixed the problem. Because medicine in this country and most countries that are European run is not designed to make you healthy anymore. It's designed to get you on medication. Your doctors are not trying to say, well, what we need to do is temporarily put you on this medicine so that we can fix the problem and get you off this medicine and heal you. They don't say that anymore. Here, start taking this. That's a chronic disease that you're going to have for the rest of your life. They're not even trying anymore to solve the problems and cure anything. There's not been anything cured in the United States of America since 1948, almost 100 years since they cured anything in this country. I don't know about your country. And let's continue.
Let us assume that a bodily distortion occurs within a particular entity, who then has a choice of seeking allopathic aid or experiencing the catalyst of the distortion and not seeking correction of the distortion. Can you comment on the two possibilities for this entity and his analysis of each path? Ra, I am Ra. If the entity is polarized towards service to others, analysis properly proceeds along the lines of consideration of which path offers the most opportunity for service to others. For the negatively polarized entity, the antithesis is the case. For the unpolarized entity, the considerations are random and most likely in the direction of the distortion towards comfort. 64.17 Questioner, Dr. Monroe, I understand, brought a four-toed Bigfoot cast by here the other day. Could you tell me which form of Bigfoot that cast was? Ra, I am Ra. We can. 64.18 Questioner, I know it is totally unimportant, but as a service to Dr. Monroe I thought that I should ask that. Ra, I am Ra. This entity was one of a small group of thought forms. 64.19 Questioner, he also asked, and I know this is unimportant, why there were no Bigfoot remains found, that is after the Bigfoot entities had died on our surface. He had asked why there had never been any remains of these entities found. Could you answer this for him? It's just of no importance, but just as a service to him I ask it. Ra, I am Ra. You may suggest that exploration.
Brooke, hi, by the way. Brooke said, and I'm going to read it for the people who are listening on the MP3 broadcast because they can't see that I put it up on the screen. Brooke said, or I should read, Reese said, let's start with that. Reese said, relax, reset, restore is my CBD business motto. Reese is over in Australia. Or he said, yeah, instead of relief, right? So then Brooke said, I'm studying all of this now. I use a lot of natural things myself. Another problem is companies asking for a doctor's certificate when I heal myself at home. More money for them for no reason, right? Yeah, if you heal yourself at home and say you're on a job, and then they're like, well, you have to have a doctor's note to come back. So then you say you have to go pay a doctor to say you're okay so that you can go back to work, right? And chances are that because they're paying your medical, right? Because your company's paying your medical, they're getting kickbacks because the doctor sees you and your medical gets charged by the doctor. And because you're sending them to specific doctors who are taking that medical, your company's getting kickbacks from the pharmaceutical companies and from the, because they're getting paid by your doctor, when they charge your medical, so they give money back to your employer. That people don't realize that's what it works. And even in this country during COVID, so going back to 2019, I was telling people these doctors are being paid by pharmaceutical companies for you being on this medicine. And people were like, yeah, that's a conspiracy theory. It's not true. Then people who had relatives who were doctors were asking their relatives, and they were like, yeah, we absolutely get paid. We are incentivized to put you on certain medications by the pharmaceutical company. So if I prescribe to you oxycodone, I get paid the longer you're on it. I get a check from them. So the more people I put on that specific drug, the more money I make. The longer they're on it, the more money I make. Once those people started coming out and telling people that, during COVID, doctors they were trying to ruin doctors and get them to lose their practice and lose their license, because they were coming out and saying, why are we incentivized by these pharmaceutical companies to give you the shot? Why are we offered money to give you the shot? And why are we offered money to intubate people? And why are we offered money to do all these things during COVID and say that they have COVID? And they tried to get those doctors kicked out of the practice because they were telling people that. And people said that that was untrue and it was a lie, and that they weren't doing that. And I'm over here in California, in the state capital of Sacramento, and myself and a few other people got the news agency in Sacramento to ask the federal government if they were paying money to the hospitals, and they admitted that they were. Well, we have to pay them for the care for people. So the hospitals were making $79,000 to $100,000 for every person that walked in the door that was diagnosed with COVID, got a COVID shot, got intubated, and got admitted to the hospital by the federal government. Didn't matter whether you lived or died. Okay. And then there was more that was beyond that. So people were saying, and then they were collecting money if you died of COVID, but you were a donor. They were selling your body parts off, and they made somewhere on the order of $7 million off of you. And then they got rid of your body and said that they had to cremate you because you had COVID. And everybody we were being told that that was a conspiracy theory, and it wasn't true until news agencies started asking the federal government, and the federal government was admitting it. And they started telling the world that. That was when COVID ended. Once news agencies, not just whistleblowers, but legacy news, said, we asked the government, and this is what they said. And that went viral around the internet, and other news agencies started asking the same questions. And then COVID ended right after that. All that knowledge came out. But as long as they had that covered up, COVID was still a thing. The second the news agencies all said, wait, what all these conspiracy theories people were saying is actually true, then the government went, yeah, and COVID's not that bad, and it wasn't even as bad as we thought. We have to recalculate the numbers of how many people actually died of COVID. It was about, a third of what we actually said. And they downplayed all the numbers. They went from saying 3 million people died in the United States from COVID down to 180,000 people. I'm not kidding you. This is not a conspiracy theory. So they were lying about a bunch of stuff, and when they got caught, they just changed their story and then said, oh, well, there's nothing you can do about it because you can't sue us. On with the show. But get your shot.
The caves which underlie some of the western coastal mountain regions of your continent will one day offer such remains. They will not be generally understood if this culture survives in its present form long enough in your time measurement for this probability/possibility vortex to occur. There is enough energy for one more full query at this time. 64.20 Questioner. In the healing exercises, when you say examine the sensations of the body, do you mean those sensations available to the body via the five senses or in relation to the natural functions of the body such as touching, loving, sexual sharing, and company, or are you speaking of something else altogether? Ra, I am Ra.
Right, yeah, lion's mane mushroom is really good. I'm looking at what Cherry said too. Cherry said, I'm on, what is that? Targan? Is that how you say that? Lyrica? Oh, you're on Lyrica. Okay. For 2 car accidents, I had 6 months, within 6 months of each other. And let me put that up on the screen so you guys can see what I'm reading here. And a double armed robbery a week later. That's bad luck. You had some bad luck there going on for that 6-month time period, right? Now on Valium plus 3 other medications, you now have migraines. That's from the Valium. And that what that causes, what the other medications, I'm not sure what they all are, but I'm sure that that's part of it. On the medications for that too, right? Of course. So once they get you on medications, then they got to give you a medication for the medication, and then another one because these two interact and it creates this problem. So we got to give you this, and they get you hooked on that, and then they basically tell you you're going to be on that for the rest of your life. You have to look at holistic things to replace those medicines that they're giving you so that you can get off of those medicines and start taking things that are natural that do the same thing. Okay. That's what you have to look into. When they had people on, Oxy and all those narcotics, there are 4 things that you can take that are natural. As long as you're not allergic to like pineapple, you can take, what is it called? Rutin. Rutin is a pineapple extract. You can take, I'm trying to think of what it is. I had my sister taking it because they had her on ibuprofen, a large amount of ibuprofen and Oxy. And I had her start taking a Boswellia root, Rutin, and I can't think of what the other one is. And you mix those 3 together, and it does the exact same thing in your body naturally that Oxy and the other narcotics do for you. You have the same pain relief, and it's all natural and it's non-addictive. So you can get yourself off of that. Same thing with Valium. You can take horny goat weed. I know it sounds crazy. Horny goat weed does the same thing mentally for you that Valium does, and it's all natural. You can look these things up. You should go to a holistic store and talk to the people at the apothecary of a holistic store, and they'll tell you what you can take as long as you're not allergic to them, and they'll go over that with you. The people there are usually really good at that. Lion's mane mushroom is really good for you. I take that every single day, and I give it to my mother as well. Lion's mane mushroom is a good mood enhancer as well as makes you smarter. It helps. And then if you take what is it? There's a couple of other things. I take lion's mane and I take turkey tail mushroom. I take both of those every day. And if you take, there's a few other things. I wasn't thinking about pills. I'm thinking I'm going from spirituality to now holistic, and I have to unplug from being up here in channeling spirituality and plug in down here to talk about holistic medicine. But you can look the stuff up, and there's a lot of things that you can take that is very inexpensive. That does the same thing that those medications that they're giving you do. Curcumin. Thank you, Danny. Curcumin is another one. Let's see, what else are you guys saying here? Right? Yeah, curcumin is good. But if you look into this stuff, you can take curcumin, rutin, and Boswellia root or Boswellia extract, yellow dock, a dandelion. You take all of those together, and it does the exact same thing that your Valium and your narcotic, whatever it is that you're taking for your pain, it does the same thing in your body, and you'll feel just as good. But it doesn't filter through your kidneys or your badly. It doesn't filter through your body badly because it's natural. But you have to make sure that you don't have a natural allergic reaction to that stuff. If you eat mustard, then you're okay with yellow dock because the yellow dock is mustard. Dandelion is literally that little dandelion that people pick up and go and blow, that little teeny thing that has all the little floaty dealies on it. The dandelion, you can get that they crunch that up. So you should look into the holistic stuff because you will feel just as good, and it will. It's a mood enhancers that will do the same thing that these medications do, and you can get off the addictive medication that is doing bad things to your body, and you can have the same thing happening to you that is going to help you in the same way, and then you can wean yourself off of their medication, because if you just stop it dead, they always tell you you'll die, you'll explode and you'll die. It's untrue, but you will have withdrawals. So you can wean yourself off of that and substitute it for natural, which they'll fight against because they'll go, there is no definitive proof of any of that. But look up those drugs, look up the Valium and find out what that was based on and what that drug was that they based Valium on. And you'll see that it was like laudanum, and you'll see that it was opium, and you'll see that then it goes back further and it becomes yellow dock and these other dandelion and rutin and Boswellia. You'll find that all of those do that, and they evolved into pharmaceuticals. Okay. So you just have to look up what it does chemically. I got deleted one time during COVID because they were saying that hydroxychloroquine didn't work to cure COVID, right? And I went to the the pharmaceutical company that created hydroxychloroquine and what the chemical composition. I am a chemist. Okay, I was certified in the United States as a chemist for 10 years. Okay, and literally I went to the website and put it up on the screen from the shot of Pfizer, Johnson and Johnson, and then the company who made hydroxychloroquine. And I put them up on the screen in different windows, and I popped up the screen and said, here is the chemical composition of hydroxychloroquine and what the pharmaceutical company claims that is the chemical reaction in the body and what it does in the body. Here is the shot of Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson and Johnson, and here is the chemical composition of what they claim on their website, and I read it to you. And then I said, this is what they claim those chemicals do to the human body for your immune system. And I read them right off the screen that you could see on the page, right off of their websites. And then went to the creator of hydroxychloroquine and put that up on your screen, and then so you could see it, and then read it for people who didn't have the MP4 broadcast that were listening in the MP3, and said exactly what the chemical composition was and exactly what it did to the human body and exactly what it did for your immune system. And it was identical. So then I concluded as a scientist, if what the Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, and Pfizer claim that shot does, if it in fact does that to the body to help you suppress the virus, hydroxychloroquine does exactly what they claim on their website. And on this website, it does the exact same thing, which means hydroxychloroquine does exactly what the shot does, and it does cure COVID. And I got deleted off of the internet for saying that. And I went to the company's Google and said, what about what I said was a conspiracy theory? Because I did not say anything. The only thing I said was, here is the website of the company who created all of these drugs. Here is what they all say the drug does. And all of them say their drug does the exact same thing. So if these three companies work, this one does too, because it says the same thing. And you guys are deleting me. And did you know that they would not allow me to put that video back up on their platform? And the same thing with what is it that they're prescribing now for COVID? I was just talking to Cassie about this. If she's still here, she can say that because we were talking about a drug. I can't think of what it's called now. Because Donald Trump was taking that when he got COVID, and all of the news agencies said it's a lie and it doesn't work, and that is just doesn't do anything for COVID, and don't take it, and you better not because you'll die. Now it is exactly what they prescribe in all hospitals across the United States for COVID, and I can't think of the name of it right now. So Cassie, if you're still here, please type in the chat what that is while I try to remember what it was called. Right. So literally, when Donald Trump was taking it, they said it was a lie and a conspiracy theory and you couldn't take it. And now it is exactly what they give you if you have COVID. So the same thing with hydroxychloroquine. And then some people give it. At the time when I said it, the Chinese were giving it to all their people to cure them of COVID. And so were the Japanese, and the Germans started doing it until they created their own. Okay. So there was many countries that had banned Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson shot, and they were giving out a version of either hydroxychloroquine or their own version of it that their pharmaceutical company was creating. And they were actually, Cassie said she fell asleep. Cassie, what was the drug that they give now for COVID? You and I just talked about this on Wednesday, and I can't remember the name of it that they give you. And I said, that's the stuff that Donald Trump took, and they said that it was a lie and it didn't do anything. And now all doctors are prescribing it for people when they get COVID. Ivermectin. Thank you. Ivermectin. Okay. So when Trump was in office and he got COVID and he said he took ivermectin, everybody on the news agencies said that doesn't work. It's a lie and don't take it. Donald Trump is an idiot and doesn't know what he's taking. Joe Rogan took it also, and they said the same thing about Joe Rogan and tried to get him kicked off the air. Now all doctors give you ivermectin if you have COVID in the United States. But between 2020 and 2023, that was a deletable offense off of the internet, along with hydroxychloroquine. And both of those medications are the most prescribed worldwide for COVID currently. And they didn't want you to know about those and didn't want you to have them. So pharmaceutical companies, my point is, they're lying to you and they don't want to cure you. They want repeat customers. So you have to look at your illnesses and learn about them on your own and learn how to cure them, because no doctor, if you're in a European run country, any country that's based on Europeans, Australia, in any of the European, Northern Europe, Western Europe, Southern Europe, the United States, Canada, if you're in any of those countries, your doctors are not trying to cure you. Your doctors work for pharmaceutical companies and they're trying to get you hooked on medication for the rest of your life. Okay. And they might try to delete me for it, but it's true. And everyone knows it. And they're not going to be able to delete people for it for very much longer, because people are starting to holistically return to the old ways. Let me do my book real quick, and then we'll finish with this episode today. Let me promote my book one more time. The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways, is about that knowledge. It's about what Ra is teaching, and it's about what's actually showing you definitively what has happened on this earth and what is currently happening on this earth that is keeping you from a certain knowledge that they're trying to eradicate from the earth. And that knowledge that is there still for you to see. I don't own it. It's in all the Bibles, but people like myself worldwide are trying to remind you of it, that it's still there. You just need to know. You need to have the eyes to see, or the ears to hear, or the mind to know. Sound familiar? Those are highlights in the Bibles around the world to show you that what I'm about to tell you in this book is very important for you. And if you are actually an adult and you're paying attention through the eyes of a person that's ascending, you'll understand what I'm saying to you. And if you're not, and you're evil and you're self-serving, you will not understand what I'm saying to you, because you can't. And that's what that is about. Okay. And my book is about that. You should take a look at that. All right. Let me continue here, because we're almost done with this episode. It's not on audio yet, Brooke. It's not on audio yet, but I'm working on doing that. You know, it's weird, because in my last books, I immediately converted it to an audio file and got it up on Kindle for you guys to listen to. I haven't done that yet. I'm going to have to go ahead and fix that. And I did it myself last time and did it. So I might do it again. I'll find out, but I haven't paid anybody to read it and do it. But last time I just, because now I could do it with a computer and just have the computer read it to you. They have really good AI now to where it doesn't sound like a computer anymore. I may just do that and input my book into the computer and have it speak it, and then just make that file and put it up. That's what I did last time. But those books are not as well done, or even the information, because I still couldn't tell the world who I was and what I was up to back then in 2016 when I published those other books. And I also didn't have the money to edit them properly. So they're very rough and not edited properly. But this book is edited properly, although there's still about 12 or 14 mistakes that I didn't catch, and neither did the editor, and we published it. Okay. So it's not out on, you can get it on Kindle, but it's not on audio yet. And I'm hoping to get it on audio soon for you guys, so that you guys can get that out there, right? Yeah, right. Denise said, Brooke, Leo's working on that. Right. So Cassie said, yeah, it was a holistic doctor that just prescribed me with it. Right. So, okay, I'm trying to read the chat while I'm doing that. So let me, I have Audible along with a lot to read them themselves. Right. Yeah. I'm going to have to create that file and throw that up there. Right. What's that? Are you in our, oh yeah. So Brooke, yeah, on Messenger, if you're on Facebook, because you're on Facebook now, so you can click on, if you look the Law of One class chat, if you type that in on Messenger, look that up. We have a chat that I created on Messenger for the Law of One class, and everybody is on there. So either that, or you can have somebody send it to you that's in here in the chat. We can get you in there into that chat, and then we can get you that information that you need, or you can just hang out and talk to people about the Law of One and Everybody that's in here that's talking back and forth to one another is in that. Wherever you are around the world, you don't have to be on Facebook, but if you have Messenger or access to Messenger, you guys can do the same thing. Look up Law of One class chat, that whole scenario there on Messenger, and we'll get you into the chat. You guys can join the chat. We'll get you in there, and you guys can have conversations. We have conversations all around the clock, day and night, with everybody that's around the world talking to one another. And I also do a Q&A on Wednesdays to where we're not on the air. So if you guys have spiritual questions of any kind, you can ask me and I will give you. I've been teaching spirituality and life coaching and spiritual life coaching and spell casting and the whole nines. And I'm also a minister of 4 religions. So I also teach just general spirituality. And I will answer questions. So if you don't want people to publicly be aware of the questions that you're asking, and we're right now giving you a private setting to where you can do that either in the chat or messaging me personally. And Cassie is going to be in the future. She's also going to be doing the same thing. And I'm not sure what day. I don't know if she's come up with the exact day. She was talking about maybe doing it on Sunday, but that's up to Cassie. You'll have to talk to her about that. She's going to be doing the same thing to help guide you guys, talking about holistic stuff and spiritual stuff the same way. She actually sells holistic stuff, and you can get a hold of Reese, who sells CBDs and stuff like that. If you're in Australia, he's got a company. So all of these people that I'm talking about here are in the chat, and we'll work with you guys to help you guys to be able to figure out your stuff and get yourself back on track spiritually as well. Okay. All right. So let's continue here with Raw, because we're almost down at the end here.
Questioner may perceive its body complex at this moment. It is experiencing sensations. Most of these sensations, or in this case, nearly all of them, are transient and without interest. However, the body is the creature of the mind. Certain sensations carry importance due to the charge or power which is felt by the mind upon the experience of this sensation.
Danny said it was my tooth. I had blood poisoning. Well, that could happen too. You could also make a antibiotic, natural antibiotic, right? You literally do that with honey, garlic, cayenne pepper. What else? I can't think of the name of the other spice. It's that yellow crap. I can't think of the name of it right now. I have some. Hold on a second. I'm going to walk away from the camera for a second so I can go over to my spice rack in the kitchen and pull it up. Ginger. Sorry, I had to run into the kitchen. And so if you take those, just those, and then oregano or Italian spice, mix those together with the honey, and apple cider vinegar. Put all that in, mix it up, and then put something in there that's kind of sweet that won't taste all nasty and sour because it's going to be hot and sour. Mix that up. You don't have to put a lot in there either. You can put about a tablespoon of all of that, and maybe a little bit more of the apple cider vinegar. Mix all that up and put it in something sweet, a juice or something. It's better if you use an orange juice or a lemon juice. And then drink that. That's a natural antibiotic that gets in your body. All of those are antibiotics, and they work in your blood and everything. It's not as strong as one of those prescribed antibiotics, but if you drink that like 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night before you go to bed, and you do about 6 ounces of that mixed up with a drink of some sort, and drink it. If you put it in a soda, it's going to turn the soda is going to be like putting an Altoid in a soda. So don't pour a soda in that, because it'll react the same way dropping an Altoid in, because that's what a lot of the mint and stuff that's in an Altoid, which makes your soda explode. So don't do that with a soda, but use something that's non-carbonated to mix it and drink it. Tastes like shit, but you'll live on it. It'll clean everything. Ginger. Yep. Penny said it. You even had the little thing up there. Yep, she knew, and by the time I didn't realize that, I got up and ran over and came back, and you were like, ginger. Turmeric, that was one of the things that thank you, Joanne. I was trying to remember that earlier, turmeric as well, when I was talking about the holistic things that are going to make you feel better. Turmeric with black pepper root or black pepper mixed together makes it stronger, along with rutin and boswellia, root, and then a yellow dock. And if you need a mood enhancer, go to horny goat weed is a good mood enhancer. St. John's wort is another good mood enhancer. That's even works for bipolar. When people who have bipolar, if it's not really severe, that actually helps out too. So you should look into the holistic stuff, herbs and holistic stuff. We should open a shop. We really should. I was selling some of that stuff online for a while on my website, but I closed the website down. I'm going to have to put it back up. I've been thinking about doing just that. All right, let's continue here because we're almost done with this session here.
For instance, at this space/time nexus, one sensation is carrying a powerful charge and may be examined. This is the sensation of what you call the distortion towards discomfort due to the cramped position of the body complex during this working. In balancing, you would then explore this sensation. Why is this sensation powerful? Because it was chosen in order that the entity might be of service to others in energizing this contact. Each sensation that leaves the aftertaste of meaning upon the mind, that leaves the taste within the memory, shall be examined. These are the sensations of which we speak. May we answer any brief queries before we leave this instrument? 64.21 Questioner, is there anything that we could do to make the instrument more comfortable or improve the contact? Ra, I am Ra. Continue to consider the alignments. You are conscientious and aware of the means of caring for the instrument in its present distortions having to do with the wrists and hands. As always, love is the greatest protection. I am Ra. I leave you, my friends, in the glorious love and joyful light of the infinite Creator. Go forth, then, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.
Right, Danny said, I had gotten St. John's wort from my mom last year, but I could not give it to her because of the pills that she was on. That's just like they don't want you drinking any kind of acidic juice, orange juice, grapefruit juice, or any of that if you're on a blood pressure pill. And the reason for that is that these days they're trying, when you take the blood pressure pill, they want the blood pressure pill to go through your stomach and into your intestines before the capsule pops open. And because of the acid of the juice, the citric acid in the orange juice or lemon juice or apple juice or grapefruit juice will break down the pill capsule or the coating over the pill itself and in the stomach before it reaches the intestines, so that it's not as strong. And that's why they tell you not to do that. So you have to look at why they're saying not to do this stuff. Most of the time you're going to find out it's either because of the delivery system that they're using for the medication, or they don't want you getting off the medication that you're on. So you got to look into that and ask the doctors, why can't I take that? And then look it up. Don't trust what your doctor is telling you is the truth. Look it up afterwards. So your doctor says, oh, well, because it'll destroy it and it won't work. So then look it up, and it's not what it is. It makes it less powerful because they want it to get past the acid in your stomach and be protected before it gets released into your body. So that doesn't mean that you can't take that medicine. It means you have to time it. And this is what we teach people holistically. Okay, if you want to have the juice, what you got to do is take your medicine and wait an hour. Do you see? Then you can drink the juice, because by the time the juice gets into your stomach, the medicine is going to be passed through the stomach into the intestine, and it's not going to do damage to it. Do you see? So you have to figure out how to get around the stuff that they're telling you, because if you just listen to the doctors, they're just lying to you. There is no definitive proof. During COVID, they said that vitamin C, people were saying massive doses of vitamin C will help you through COVID. And they were literally coming on the news in the United States and saying, don't do that, you'll die. There is no definitive proof that vitamin C does anything for you. Vitamin C, which literally is the building blocks for your immune system. They were telling people in the United States not to take vitamin C during COVID. Do you understand that? Do you realize what the ramifications of that is? Do not take vitamin C if you have COVID, because it's not good for you. And people were taking large quantities of vitamin C and zinc. And today, people who don't go to the doctor for COVID take large quantities of vitamin C and zinc, and you get over COVID in less than, usually less than a week, 10 days maximum, and you don't die from COVID. Okay. And they don't say anything about it anymore because no one's buying their bullshit about COVID anymore, period. When they're like, look out, COVID's coming, watch, it's November. They're like, look out, COVID's coming. People are like, get away, get off, right? Get off. If you're over in England, they're all saying that, get off, right? Because they're just not buying it anymore because it's not going to kill you. It wasn't killing you then. They were blaming it on that. Doctors are now coming out and saying that, right? So you have to look at holistically. I'm not saying just to quit taking their medicine. I don't want the pharmaceutical companies to sue me. I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you that advice. What I'm telling you is there are alternatives that do just as good as their medicine is, because if you look it up, if you're in the United States, the Food and Drug Administration says that everything that happens on this planet naturally is not a medicine, and it is not, there's no definitive proof that that does anything for anyone at all. Yet, when you look up where they got the idea for every medicine, it's based from something in nature that actually did that. And the same people paid those people for the Food and Drug Administration or the EPA to actually tell you that that natural thing doesn't do anything. Well, that's weird. That's bizarre because this drug is based on that natural thing. They were just trying to manufacture it, not having to get it in nature. You know why? Because if they tell everybody that aspirin is the same as white willow bark, people will go out and go to a white willow tree and take the bark off of it and grind it up into a powder, because that's what they used to put in pill form before. The only problem that I have with white willow bark is that I have diverticulosis in my intestines, and that I'll have a diverticulitis flare up, so it hurts. So if I take the white willow bark, it gets into my small intestines, or the large intestines. No, the small intestines, and it hurts because it gets into the pits that are in the corner. So I know I can take it, but I'm going to have a stomach ache. I don't have the flare up to where I have the diarrhea, but it hurts. So if I take one in the morning instead of an aspirin, say, because I have arthritis, then somewhere around 3 o'clock in the afternoon until about 8 o'clock at night, I'm in pain in my intestines because it's going through the small intestines, right? So I know that if I do that, I'm going to have that ache from it. Do you see? But that's a small price to pay if I don't want to take a pharmaceutical drug. Do you see? Back in the day, no pharmacy people were using natural herbs or living for 200 years. Well, people who were doing that. That's why if you look at people in Japan and over in China that live longer, you'll find they don't go to doctors. They're not on medicine. They're taking natural remedies, and they live 120 years, 130 years. Everybody who gets on these pharmaceutical drugs, they don't make it to the year 100. Every person, if you see them on television and they're like, oh, we just met Ethel Mertz over here in Connecticut, and she turned 104 today. You say, what is your secret to it? She'll tell you, I'm not on any medicine. Why not? You're not on any medication? No, because she took care of herself holistically and she didn't trust doctors. And guess what? She made it, and she's 104 years of age. But people who take all that medicine, they get you hooked on it by the time you're in your 40s. If they can, they'll get you hooked. And they're trying to get people hooked earlier and earlier. And if you get hooked on their medicine, they're not curing anything. They have everybody wearing CPAP machines. And now they're like, well, if you can't have that, we'll put this implant in you. We'll do surgery on you and put an implant in you. Why aren't we looking into curing why people need to have a CPAP machine on and breathe? Why are we not fixing their breathing? Why are we giving them a machine to breathe in while they sleep for the rest of their lives and not fixing what's wrong with them so that they can breathe better? My buddy Paul, who is deceased now, but it doesn't have anything to do with this, he had a deviated septum, and they were like, we're going to give you this machine to breathe in for the rest of your life. And he was like, why are we not just doing surgery and fixing my deviated septum? Oh, well, because your medical company that pays you, that is your medical provider, doesn't allow us to do that. And he's like, what? I pay them money. I pay them. They work for me. So he called them up and he actually had to say to them, I need you to understand that you work for me. I don't work for you. So you either authorize them to do the surgery or you're fired. I'm going to sue you. And you'll hear from my lawyer, and I'll go and get somebody else that is a company that will authorize that surgery. And I still might sue you for not authorizing that. They authorized it, and he went in and had surgery and never had to have a machine. Do you see? Okay. So you need to be careful. You need to be careful when they're diagnosing you and getting you on this medication. You need to look into things and see if there's alternatives. I remember when I went in and I was having x-rays done to diagnose that I had arthritis, horrible arthritis in all of my joints. And I remember talking to the doctor who my doctor sent me to a specialist for my knees because I had damage done to my knees when I was younger and playing football and construction and all of that. And he was shooting some cortisone in there to dissolve the arthritis so that I would have some relief. And he said he wanted to give me some hydroxychloroquine or oxycodone, one of those two. Oxycodone, it wasn't hydroxychloroquine because that's for COVID. Oxy for my pain. And I knew that it was a narcotic, and I was like, I don't know. Is there some other kind of medication that I can get that'll help me with that pain? He looked me in the eye and went, no. And instantly, I knew he was lying to me, but didn't say anything. I went, oh, all right, well, I don't want that then. And he's like, you're going to be in horrible pain. I'm like, I'll deal with the pain. And he was like, okay, but I'm telling you, I can give you a prescription for it. And this was back in 2016. This was before it was known that that was an epidemic in the United States. Also before the lawsuit that proved that the companies that the pharmaceutical company that created Oxy was incentivizing and lying about how that drug was not in any way something you'll get addicted to and not dangerous. And they got caught, and they almost pulled that drug completely off of the market, and they got penalized like $500 million or $1 billion over the deal, and almost went out of business because of it. And I sensed that something was wrong and it was an epidemic. And I asked the doctor point blank, and he said he lied to me, and I watched him do it. So I'm sure that doctor was getting paid. So he was not going to prescribe me any other medication, told me there wasn't anything that would help me, and lied to me because he was standing to gain money to get me addicted to that drug. I didn't sue him, but I didn't take the drug, and I looked into it holistically and found other ways of taking things to help me with that pain, some of which that I talked about on here, Boswellia root, rutin, and a couple of other things. I'm trying to remember all of that right now. That does the same thing as those narcotics do in your body, and it's not a narcotic. It's all natural. So you got to be careful of what they're selling you and look up what it is that they're giving you and what that does, and then look up holistically. And you can't do it on Google because Google doesn't want you to know about it. So they're trying, because they're getting paid to keep you from learning that stuff. Google still is pretty good about giving you that because they don't care so much about that. But I would say to go to DuckDuckGo and look up there. You're going to get more interesting information by going to DuckDuckGo than you are going to get from Google. Okay. That's why there's so many people have now moved over to DuckDuckGo. Google used to be the #1 search engine on the planet, and DuckDuckGo is almost taking over that. And it probably won't be less than 5 years. And Google is going to be the #2 or #3 search engine. And you watch when that starts costing them money, they're all of a sudden going to start opening up their shit. That's what all companies will do. You have to make it worth their while for them to change their ways, or they won't change their ways. Okay, I got to go because it's almost 5:30. I got to get my mom in the shower. So I love you guys. I'm not going to go 3 hours this week. So hopefully, Pamela said that she sent somebody. Who was it that Pamela that you were sending that to? It was who was it that was talking earlier? Invite so that we can get them into it was Brooke, I think. Brooke, I think Pamela said that she sent you a friend's invite so we can get you into the Law of One chat. Anybody else that's not already in the Law of One chat, if you want to be in the Law of One chat, get a hold of one of the people in this audience or myself, and we'll get you in the chat. I will be on Wednesday on Zoom. We'll do a Zoom meeting again. I'm going to be doing that every Wednesday so that you guys can ask me questions about spirituality or any of that stuff, and I'll give you guys free advice. And eventually I'm going to start charging people money and speaking in front of people around the world doing this, not just myself, but many of us are doing that around the world already. And as we transition now into this next phase of what we're doing here on this earth, as we get closer to 2030 and then 2050, you're going to see a lot more of us standing up and start telling you who we are that we haven't been telling you so far because we needed to stay under the cover of invisibility as long as we could until this phase, moving people into the age of Aquarius. Some of you know that that's going on, but moving into this feminine energy, the Kunda buffer energy, to change the course of this world, to fix this place and get it back on track. And we had to stay hidden because they were murdering us in many lifetimes to keep this information from getting out to you. And once the seminal point was reached, there are now currently more people on this earth that are not from this earth that actually came here to assist. And because strength in numbers, they can no longer just murder us all off because there's too many of us. So if they were to kill me, somebody else was already ready to take my place and just stand up and do what I'm doing. So it's not like they can wipe us all out. That's why they're trying to get us into a third world war, to kill us all off, because they need us all to go back to sleep and get reveiled, to recycle and come in a different body somewhere and be veiled, because too many of us are unveiled. And because of that, we're telling you guys what's going on in reality here, and that we're fixing it, and that we're no longer afraid of those yahoos, because the only thing they can do right now is try to stifle us on these platforms, and these platforms are dying. Just like legacy media around the world will go away by 2035. There won't be legacy media anymore, except for those people who go back to giving everybody all of the actual information instead of only one political party that's trying to take control of the planet. Once they go back to being completely unbiased, they'll be able to survive. The same thing with places like Google, like YouTube, and Facebook here that I'm broadcasting on. They're going to go the way of these other platforms that will die because there's people that are creating new platforms that they can't touch and they don't control right now, so they can't actually delete you off of platforms. And right now, because Facebook and YouTube are the two biggest, Google and Meta, they still control the lion's share around the world, but that's waning quickly. And they're going to have to either open up their doors and stop deleting people for saying something because they're backing a certain political party in whatever country that they're in, and the governments are also going to die, and they're trying to hold on to everything that they have, because the way of life, the governments themselves and the countries are going to stay, okay? But the way that they're governing is going to change, because like right now, the United States government is the deep state. They're just like the English government, just like the Australian government. They're propagating their own power and staying in control of the people. They're not ruling for the people, by the people. They're ruling over you as if they were your kings and queens. I know that you in the UK have a king, but he's not in charge the way he used to be in charge of 400 years ago. Okay, you have a governing body in your government that has all the power, and your king is a little bit like our president now, and that sucks for you guys, because they used to yield a lot more power than they currently do. But then you had evil dictators who were kings and queens who wanted to rule with an iron hand throughout history. Not all of them. The majority of them weren't. The queen was not one of those people. This king, I think, is also not quite evil. But, he's not exactly a saint either, but nobody is, right? I mean, let's be serious. But I think he's ruling with a decent hand. So far, he's had my approval. So long live the king. I do prefer the queen, though, and some of you would say she was a tyrant too, but she had a purpose for her tyranny that was a little bit more towards helping the people. Even though there's a lot of you out there that will say that she was evil, and so is he. But then there's some of you who would get really angry with me if I said that about your king. But I'm not saying that because I don't see him as, his demeanor isn't, unless he's a really good actor, his demeanor isn't self-serving, right? I mean, he already owns everything. He already has everything. He doesn't need to treat you guys like slaves. You know what I mean? But these evil people, the 14%, the 1% of the 14% that are evil on this earth, they're controlling everything. They're controlling your BBC. They're controlling my ABC, my CBS, my NBC. They're even controlling Fox. You know what I mean? So they are the Anunnaki, or they're not the actual Anunnaki, but they're the people that the Anunnaki put in charge. They're the people that the Orion Crusaders put in charge down here. Because those people who were the Anunnaki, that were the Orion Crusaders, they ran for their lives when those of us of the Patal showed up here to defend this place and to take back this sector of the galaxy and make it free again. They ran from us like the cowards that they are, and we're chasing them. There's those of us who stayed here to mop up, but the rest of us went towards the center of the Milky Way galaxy, following them and island hopping. Every time they show up somewhere and get control, we show up and kick their ass, and they run for their lives and pretend that they're taking over the entire galaxy when they know they're not, because we're kicking their ass right behind them. But they're telling all their people that they're taking everything over and lying about it, and their people are not looking backwards anymore because they're not allowed to, and we're hot on their tail fixing it. And so it keeps the balance. They take control, we take it back. They take control, we take it back. And that's just the way things are supposed to go. And we keep that going to keep the natural balance, because they don't get to go past the sixth, halfway through the sixth density, because they were never created to do so. So the laws of the universe don't allow it. They won't tell you that either, because they don't want you knowing that, because they don't want you thinking that they're not as equal to God. And so they're like, nope, our God is as strong as their God, and we're vying for control, and there's a war going on. It's all a lie. It's an ecosystem. It's not that. Okay. So, yeah, so you got to pay attention to what's going on, guys. And I'll talk to you guys later. I'm going to go. I love you guys. This has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. I'll either see you in the chat, I'll see you on Wednesday on the Zoom call, or I'll see you next Friday back here live. For those of you who are around the world listening on the MP3 broadcast, I do know who you are. I do track that. I know what countries you're listening to me in, because I pay attention to that. I don't know exactly what city. I usually know what state or what province in your country that you're listening to me, and how many of you are there. And I haven't mentioned it for a while. I'll look it up again, and next time I'm on next Friday, I'll give you guys shout outs around the world. But I'm currently in over 70 countries, and you guys are out there. And so give me a shout out, or make sure you click on it so that I get a notice from your country. You guys in Germany, Brazil, you guys over everywhere, Mexico, all around the globe. People are listening to me in free countries anyways. There's people in the Czech Republic. There's people in Sweden and Finland and Norway and the UK, of course, Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales. There's a couple of people in Wales. I know you're out there. Argentina, weirdly, right? Africa, there's South Africa, but I have friends there. There's people in other places, the Congo, weirdly. There's other places. You guys are out there in the world. You're listening. I am aware of that. I love you guys. Make sure that you stay diligent, do your diligence, read, question everything. The second you start questioning this matrix is the last moment that it controls you. The second you start questioning all of your reality is the last second you're controlled by your reality. From that point on, you are in control, and that's what they don't want you to do. That's why they try to shut you up and don't want you to question anything they tell you, because the second you question them and say, wait a minute, why does God need a starship? James T. Kirk almost got killed over that one back in the day, whenever that movie came out. Now it was like 35 years ago or 30 years ago when that movie came out. And he's like, I'm sorry, why does God need a starship? And God's tried to strike him down and kill him, but he survived it. And he was like, that's not God. God doesn't need a starship. All right, guys. I love you guys. Have a good day. Have a good weekend wherever you are. And if you're in the United States, I'll say it one more time. Saturday night when you go to bed, change your clocks back 1 hour, because at 2 a.m. Sunday morning, we fall back 1 hour here in the United States, or anywhere else in the world for that matter. If you have a time change, it is your Saturday night going into Sunday morning, if you abide by that thing. As I know, there's a few countries that are not just the United States that do the time change. Okay, guys, I love you guys. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. I will see you guys later.